I think this concept of commerce anywhere is speaking to the fact that if I'm a merchant, I need to think about meeting my consumers where they are.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Selling Strategies. So today we're going to be covering all things multi-channel, essentially. And our guest today is actually Darin Lynch from Irish Titan. Darin, just want to give a quick intro and just like the elevator pitch about who you are and what you guys do.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Kieran. I'm looking forward to the conversation. My name is Darin Lynch. I am the founder and CEO of Irish Titan. We're an e-commerce agency that I started 20 years ago. We build and grow e-commerce channels. We have a spirit. We refer to it as our why. If you know Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called Start With Why. Our why is business first, online second, which means that it's not about bits and bytes or pixels or keywords. It's about how we further our clients' business initiatives. So we build and grow e-commerce channels with that spirit, meaning we build our merchants' websites, and then we work with them on an ongoing basis with their e-commerce marketing activities, some of their operational e-commerce efficiencies, et cetera. We do that with a Titan-only model, meaning we do all of our work with our Titans, our employees, no contractors, freelancers, offshore resources, and we're closed only 2 days a year.
What are some of the most common challenges that you're seeing amongst e-commerce businesses today? You know, we recently published a report, and like shipping costs, you know, both on the consumer retail side is obviously a big one. Just that operational complexity. But I'd love to hear it from you and what you're seeing out there.
I speak at a lot of events. I'm on a lot of panels. I speak to a lot of our merchants. I talk to our Titans and try to keep an ear to the ground on what's happening. And one of the most common things I continue to hear actually is how to navigate AI. Just last week, I was on a panel in New York City, and there were a lot of questions about how to navigate AI. People, I think merchants are understanding some of its hype, some of its reality, distinguishing between the two. And there's lots of content out there. But I think that sometimes we all feel like maybe we're behind the curve on any trend that is going through that hype adoption curve. And almost everybody I talk to is around the same place. And so I think sometimes there's some comfort in knowing that we're all navigating that together. So that's a common challenge that seems to come up frequently. We do hear a lot of questions, concerns, challenges around operational efficiency and how to navigate that in a multi-channel world, and to manage to the customer expectations that they may have, right? Not the merchant expectations, but the end buyer, with the shipping experience and the notifications and product fidelity and data hygiene and some of those sorts of things. And that's a real challenge. The other challenge that merchants are bringing to the table is the confusion and challenge they have with being chased by so many e-commerce providers, right? They're still chased by platforms to re-platform, rebuild their site. To platforms' credit, they are offering the ability to build sites with longer legs now. You can build a site and maintain that site for longer than in eras past. I've lived through where you had to rebuild your site every 3-4 years because the technology just didn't have the longevity. That's not true now, to the platform's credit. But of course, to the platform's business models, they're still trying to find new customers. So merchants get chased by platforms. They're chased by marketing technologies because personalization and engagement and conversion and loyalty and retention sorts of strategies and providers are chasing them. That makes it easy for them to be distracted by that attention, the merchants, and ignore the opportunity to optimize and invest in more of the off-site tech stack, like your SKU management, feed management, et cetera, right? And so merchants have a challenge navigating all of that.
Just kind of pulling back to that operational efficiency piece, because I think that ties in nicely with your business philosophy, that business first, online second. So could you just elaborate on what you mean by that, and in a real world level, like what are some of the operational efficiencies that you advocate for in some of your clients that maybe they haven't got quite right before they then start thinking about, okay, now we can go multi-channel and, look to expand to different markets?
I actually am a little bit atypical for an e-commerce agency owner. First of all, I already mentioned we've been around for a long time. And so I've seen a lot of different eras come and go. But more importantly than that, most agency owners and founders come out of another agency and they spin out and take a book of business, or they're a freelance engineer or designer or marketer that starts their own agency and builds from there. I came out of a corporate IT background. Prior to starting Irish Titan, I was CIO at Second Swing Golf. Before that, at Wilson's Leather. I launched e-commerce at both of those retailers who were national in scope. Wilson's not around as a brand anymore, but we were in almost 800 stores, almost $1 billion company. Second Swing Golf is still around, very prominent online. We were the largest golf retailer in the country when I was there. Prior to that, I launched Office Max's e-commerce in 1997. I was successful in those endeavors coming out of IT because really early through some mentors I had the benefit of working with, I developed this notion of business first, online second. It's not about technology. It's about how technology empowers a business. So for example, at Wilson's or Second Swing, I really challenged our IT professionals to stop caring about having the best server and instead figure out how to relate that server's performance to how we can achieve our business goals. So when I started Irish Titan, I really adopted that business first, online second as our spirit, our mentality, because as a consumer, the experiences that I enjoyed the most and that benefited the business the most were the ones where those providers were looking to improve my business instead of just selling me 3-letter acronyms. So this business first, online second philosophy, we've actually trademarked it. It's the trademark's framed and hanging by our front door. It's baked into our hiring process, our review process, et cetera. So it's not just lip service. What that means is when we're working with our merchants, sometimes we'll tell them the site's in good shape. We don't need to invest anymore in the site. Your challenge is your data hygiene is risk because you have store POS information that is not in sync with your e-commerce product information. And then that is adding risk to what your inventory levels look like in either channel if you're not syncing that, right? So we'll work through that with our merchants to help ensure that they have better product data fidelity, that they develop the right sort of reports or leverage the right kind of tools so they have one version of the truth so they can make more informed decisions. And that's been well received by our clients because a lot of e-commerce professionals and companies either have the mentality where they are thinking about that sizzle only, like when you go to the site, what it looks like and how your site performs, which is important. But sometimes you need more than that. You need that steak and not just that sizzle. And so a lot of people think about that or just look at one slice of the pie, and we try to look at it as an end-to-end solution.
Moving on to just talking about, the landscape as it is at the moment, it's like a commerce anywhere sort of landscape. Consumers are shopping and want to shop online, offline, on social, through your website, through a marketplace. So convenient for the consumer, complex for the retailer. And, we've spoken about some of the more general challenges, but just specifically when it comes to developing that multi-channel piece, like what are some of the specific challenges that retailers face when it comes to that?
One of the challenges we frequently hear merchants discuss from a multi-channel perspective is how to approach their customers and how to profile their customers and how to give their customers the experience the customers want in comparison to migrating the customers where the merchant wants to, right? Because sometimes we'll have a merchant who has outlet stores, brick and mortar, and a website. And so, for example, outlet stores typically have a different price point. That's why they're outlet stores. And sometimes a merchant will have that natural inclination to consider, okay, how do we move an outlet customer over to being a brick and mortar customer or a website customer with a higher AOV. That's understandable as a business owner, right? Like you want to increase your AOV. But sometimes that customer, that outlet customer, they're an outlet customer and that's what they're going to be. And if they feel offended or taken advantage of in your attempts to move them to other channels, they might bolt and go to one of your other competitors that treats them like an outlet customer with value conscious buying. I think sometimes our merchants are challenged trying to figure out, okay, well, how much do I prioritize moving them to a higher AOV to benefit my business versus how much do I cater to the profile, persona, demographics, psychographics that they're demonstrating to us so that we can continue to take good care of them from a retention perspective. That's been a frequent conversation recently for us. And I think some of that's driven by, at least in the US, the economics where there are certain demographics that are extremely price conscious right now. And there are certain demographics that have higher purchasing power right now. It's kind of widening right now. So we've been having more and more of those conversations, which, is interesting. If you read Business 101 books, they tell you all the time, move your customers from outlet to brick and mortar, higher AOV. To the earlier point that we discussed, though, the multi-channel challenge that has been true from day one and continues to be true to some degree, a lesser degree, but is still the biggest thorn in people's paw is data hygiene, data fidelity, right? Because really e-commerce comes down to customers, orders, and products. There's more than that, but those are the three main areas of data. And if you're selling online, if you're selling in brick and mortar, if you're selling in marketplaces versus your branded site, maintaining your data hygiene so that you have products listed appropriately, so that you have confidence in your inventory levels, which is what I refer to as the data fidelity. That's a challenge. And merchants continue to struggle with that. I think that we have the benefit today of being able to solve that to a larger degree because systems are so much lighter and easier to integrate now. I remember in the early days of Irish Titan when we were trying to integrate an e-commerce site with an ERP, it was damn near impossible, really, right? I mean, you could. It was very expensive. It was very difficult to maintain. Well, now ERPs have so much more API capabilities than they used to. E-commerce platforms, of course, do. Solutions like Linworks have great API capabilities. POS systems have better API capabilities. So you can tie them together now in a much easier fashion. But now we need to maintain that, right? And the merchants can find that overwhelming from time to time.
Can you just give some like specific strategies or tools? You mentioned a few there in terms of, if we're talking about one of these SMBs here who are looking to improve their data hygiene, what are some of the steps that they can take in order to do that?
I'll take as a given, as an assumption that they have an e-commerce platform, like Shopify, BigCommerce, et cetera, one of the modern platforms like a Shopware, et cetera, that allows for the right kind of capabilities, that has the modern table structures, et cetera. So I'll look outside of the actual e-commerce platform. First of all, I would suggest that they look at feed management in terms of how they are moving their product to different marketplaces, how they're posting it online for paid search, et cetera. Feed management is one of those overlooked areas right now that is in this time of commerce anywhere, as we've been talking about. I think feed management is a crucial tool at merchants' disposal that maintains data hygiene, that improves your ROI on your paid search listings, et cetera. So I would look at feed management, and you can drive me if you want to go a little bit deeper there. Then I would look at where your product, your SKU, where your inventory management is really handled. The merchants that we've found to have the most challenges in that area are the ones that don't have an inventory management, a SKU management system, and try to rely on POS or your e-commerce system, and they outgrow that. And if you're having pain points around inventory management, SKU management, and your data hygiene in those areas, it's probably because you've outgrown your e-commerce or your POS system and you don't truly have an inventory management system.
What about for, say, maybe a more mid-market business? should they be focusing on the same, like feed management? Is that the priority? Or are they going to already be doing that? Say they've got the Shopify big commerce setup, but they're selling on, 5+ marketplaces on top of that, and maybe they've got a retail store. What's the play for these guys?
Yeah, I would actually say feed management in the mid-market continues to be overlooked too. I think that feed management is sort of an advanced e-commerce focused ETL tool, right? Which is more of a technical sort of engineering developer team tool. It stands for extract, transform, load. It's really like integration capabilities. And feed management, I think, is a little bit overlooked because it's akin to that. So even in the mid-market, they overlook the ability to leverage a feed management tool like Feedonomics so that when you have paid search ads that are showing up on multiple platforms, let's say you have something showing up on Amazon, on Bing, on Google, and on an ad network. All four of those might have different requirements or different limits on how long the product name can be, how long the product description can be, maybe the attributes associated with that. Feed management tool can ensure that the product data that you have, either in your e-commerce system or in your inventory management system, wherever the version of truth is, that's going to get posted the right way on all four of those different outputs. And so that's one of the benefits. If you're posting on marketplaces, not paid ads, but actual product, feed management can facilitate that in the same situation where you have different marketplaces with different requirements. Even in the mid-market, we have found feed management to be overlooked. It is one of the single biggest areas that we've really invested in the last year that our merchants have benefited from and demonstrated more appetite for, even in the mid-market.
I mean, you mentioned you've been 20 years in e-commerce. So you've seen it evolve from, the early days to what it is today. I just wonder, where do you think e-commerce is going? What is e-commerce going to look like in 5 years' time? Does AI obviously play a big role? But I just wonder as well, even specifically from like a multi-channel perspective, where do you see things going?
We need to distinguish between AI and its effect on society and social media and automation and job replacement or job creation. Those are different sorts of topics. I think as AI relates to e-commerce, it's going to become an embedded technology, right? Where different software providers and different merchants are using it in different ways to further their businesses. And so I do think it's going to have a big impact, but so has headless commerce had a big impact. I believe in this concept of commerce anywhere, which we've talked about. And that really started to emerge for me a few years ago when when Irish Titan had grown enough that I was a little less in the business, a little more on the business, and able to shift a little of my energy to strategic thought and kind of thinking about where things were going, et cetera. And so I was reflecting on all the e-commerce that I've seen since 1997 when I first launched that Office Max e-commerce site and thought, I think there might be something to this e-commerce thing. Now, when I look back at it, I don't even know how the hell we launched that site. But there's been so much change. It used to be difficult just to get a really good, powerful, high-performing branded site up and running, right? And here we are, fast forward to today. There's social commerce, there's marketplace, Amazon, Etsy, Walmart, et cetera. There are branded sites. There is in the future, there's possible voice commerce. We've been talking about that. Live shopping, for example, is another thing. And I know live shopping is big in China, but I don't know if those will ever really take root in the U.S. and in Europe, et cetera. I know that voice shopping really hasn't as much as I expected it to. But if you combine all of that, that speaks to this notion of commerce anywhere, where I think that we have the capabilities of enabling merchants to do business wherever their customers want them to. And so I think this concept of commerce anywhere is speaking to the fact that if I'm a merchant, I need to think about meeting my consumers where they are and how I navigate that, because in social commerce, they're wanting to capture, they being the social media companies, Meta, TikTok, et cetera, they want to capture that experience, right? They want that transaction and that conversion taking place within their black box. Then you're going to lose some information compared to what you get on your branded site. But if you don't offer to some degree the capabilities, then you're missing out on those customers. So this concept of commerce anywhere, I think, is going to continue to take shape and become more adopted because the technology allows for it. So I think what you're going to see in the future, to try to land the plane, is you're going to have merchants at first struggling to figure out how to navigate that, because they're different products or different customer sets might appeal differently, right? If I'm a highly branded product, I might not want to be in a marketplace. I might not want to sell my product in Amazon because I don't have the customer information. I'm not as in control of the customer experience. And if I'm highly branded, if Irish Titan were an apparel company, because we're pretty brand driven, I don't think I'd be on Amazon. But if I'm selling these green bottles, I'd probably want those on marketplaces, right? So merchants are going to need to navigate that. They're going to need to navigate how they manage their data hygiene and their data fidelity. That's going to continue to be a priority. I think it will become less of a problem in the future as the systems talk together more and more.
To wrap up, why don't you just give listeners 3 specific pieces of advice as e-commerce businesses, just in terms of if they're looking to develop their multi-channel strategy, like what are 3 things that they can be doing today?
Prioritize your data hygiene and your data fidelity, meaning make sure your data is clean and accurate, and know that it is going to be correct wherever you post it and feed it. Secondly, consider your customer experience from purchase to package. I think that merchants frequently really prioritize the site and the path to purchase and conversion, understandably. But you have so much opportunity to reinforce your brand image and provide a good customer experience after they purchase, with your packaging, with your delivery, with your retention capabilities and priorities, et cetera. Lastly, I think approach your tech stack with positive skepticism, right? Meaning, if I'm a merchant, you need to lean on companies like ours to help you build that e-commerce experience. And so you need to be optimistic about where the industry is going, how your partners are going to take care of you, et cetera. But you should be a healthy skeptic in vetting all of that so that you get the right tech stack and the right partners in place.
But you do need that ecosystem, the positive skepticism, of course, but yeah, you need that ecosystem and partners like...
One thing I'll mention around the ecosystem is there are a number of us that have been in the space for a long time, companies and or people. And those of us that have been in the space for a long time frequently talk about how our industry has the benefit of such an abundance mentality. You know, there's this concept of scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality. In our space, first of all, commerce isn't going anywhere. Wherever consumers convene, there will be commerce, right? There's a lot of alliteration in that. But I think that from the beginning of time until the end of time, people are going to buy and sell things. That's commerce. So we have the benefit of an industry that's not going to go away. Technology is going to continue to evolve and enable and empower more and more capabilities around how merchants take care of their consumers. We have an opportunity where we're not fighting over printing presses or horses and buggies. Our industry is growing. The industry is going to continue to evolve. That, I think, has attracted a number of people and companies with this spirit of an abundance mentality. You need that healthy skepticism, right? To help find the right partner, make sure you're not being sold the latest 3-letter acronym, some of that business first, online second reasoning. But there is a wealth of positive intent and energy in the ecosystem where those of us trying to help merchants are doing that because we see all the opportunity for that. There's this abundance mentality that injects such optimism into the ecosystem, and it's fun to be a part of.
Great note to finish on. Well, Darin, thanks so much for coming on. I hope everyone listening got some nuggets from that. I certainly did.
Good. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the conversation.